गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्यत्यारि सतारिणे श्री गुरु चरण पद्मा केवल भक्ति सद्मा श्री गुरु चरण पद्मा केवल भक्ति सद्मा जय गौ प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल।
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jana Vallabha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Yashodaranjana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Krishna Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us for the Sunday program this evening. I'm going to move my chair at an angle so that I don't have my back to Krishna Prabhupada, but I can still see everybody. So let's see how we do that. Hare Krishna once again, and a warm welcome to everybody for the Sunday program this evening. I see two new faces, maybe not new anymore because I met you 15 minutes ago, but a very warm welcome to Nicholas and Ram for joining us today. So today, every Sunday we speak from a book by Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of ISKCON. ISKCON stands for International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, he came to the United States, at the age of 69, 70, and he established the Hare Krishna movement. His spiritual master was Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's father was Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And Friday was his disappearance day. Disappearance means when a person leaves the body. For acharyas, acharya means guru or special teachers. We don't use the word death because they don't, their body is not material like our ordinary body. So, when a normal mortal entity leaves the body, we say that this person died, right? But for acharyas, we use the term that they left the planet because they are always performing their pastimes in some other abode. So today we will be talking about the glories of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and time permitting, we will also talk about Shri Gadadhar, whose disappearance day was on Friday, and time permitting, we will talk about Swarup Damodar, whose disappearance is today. So with that as background, I'll try to go slow, Nicholas and Ram, because I know this is your first time. If you hear a colloquial term which we normally use and you're not aware, don't hesitate, raise your hand and you can ask for explanation. I'm going to start with the invocation prayers. We chant these prayers to seek the blessings of the senior teachers, acharyas, or the gurus. As per the injunction of the Vedic scriptures, whoever sits on the seat and speaks should simply repeat the message that has been spoken by the previous teachers. And we, before we do that, we seek their blessings. Like before starting any endeavor, we make sure that we have the infrastructure, we have the support system, we have the necessary help. Like if you want to build a table, right? You want to make sure that you have the toolkit. You have the nails, the wood pieces, and the saw and the machine. And then you also want to make sure that you went to a school, and you learned carpentry. So similarly, when speaking about spiritual knowledge, we seek blessings from the senior leader, gurus and the teachers, the acharyas. Om Ajnatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaiham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजाथां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामो राम रामो हरे हरे. We'll start with the glories of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So I'll start with a little bit of a background. Supreme Personality of Godhead is Shri Krishna. We have a deity there. Shri Krishna appeared in 1500 AD as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that form, he established the Sankirtan Yagna, the Yuga Dharma for this age, the congregational chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. What happened by 1750, roughly about 250 years later, the importance of the chanting of the holy name and the teachings of Mahaprabhu were lost to the society. So there was a degradation, and despite his coming and propagating the message of Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the people were not adopting to that. So his effort was somewhat waning by that time. So when Bhakti Vinod Thakur appeared, he actually was not born in a Vaishnava family. Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He was born in a very opulent setting, but when he was 11 years old, he lost his father. And at that time, there was readjustment to his family inheritance. And when he was 12, he became very poor. He was in a very poverty-stricken situation. And there is a reason why I'm, giving these details. You might think that why am I not jumping straight to, what he contributed or what he wrote. But when, from being born in a very opulent setting, when he was 12, 13, he was in a very poverty-stricken situation. Few years later, his marriage was fixed. He was a very good student. His uncle arranged for him. His name was Kedarnath Dutt that time. His uncle arranged for Kedar to study in a school where he was able to learn English very well. He was a very intelligent, very bright student. From an early age, he started writing and composing. At that time, he was not a devotee. So what he was writing, was general politics and economics. Being a very intelligent person, he was also experimenting with other philosophies and knowledge. So he read about Christian theology, he read about Shankaracharya's philosophy, and he started working as a school teacher. He got married, and when his first child was born, At that time, his wife died during childbirth. He married Bhagwati Devi. He married second time, and his wife's name was Bhagwati Devi. So during this time, he got promoted as the headmaster of the school, and he came across the literatures of um, Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita philosophy. So when he read that, that sparked his interest in Vaishnavism, and he started reading more. At that time, there was also a change in his employment. He took up a very responsible job in the British government. India was under the colonial rule that time. India was being ruled by the British. So he gradually moved up the ranks. It was not very easy for an Indian person to get a very responsible job being under the British rule that time. But he got he became the collector, then the registrar, and eventually he moved up the ranks. And he was appointed as the deputy magistrate, which was the highest rank that an Indian could achieve under the British rule in the government. And he was so qualified and so proficient in what he did that the British actually built a railway track leading right up to his home so that he did not have to waste time in travel. And I was listening to a lecture by Vaishishika Prabhu the other day that he spoke on Bhakti Vinod Thakur a couple of years ago. And he mentioned that in his duty as the judge or as the magistrate, he solved the most cases. His rate was like 4 or 5 times the rate of any other judge at that time. And he has the least request for reversals. Reversal means, judge gives a decision and, the defendant or the prosecutor, they make an appeal or another request for the case to be taken up another time for the decision to be reversed. So he solved the most cases almost 4 or 5 times any other judge, and he has the least request for reversals. The British highly regarded him. So, he as he was reading the Vaishnava literature, he became more and more convinced about the Vedanta philosophy, about the Srimad Bhagavatam and about the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he got appointed, I'm forgetting the name of the town, maybe it was Champaran, when he was the headmaster. And he had developed such a strong faith in the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam that he was actually able to put it to a use where other people in the village were also able to understand that Srimad Bhagavatam's message is the highest message and can bring relief from all misery. Like this is the panacea for all kinds of problems in the material world. He was posted in a village and there was a tree that was there was a banyan tree that was possessed by a ghost. And this ghost had the power to control the minds of the people in such a way that if there was a case going on in the court, then he could control the judge's mind in favor of the people who was worshipping the ghost. There was a banyan tree possessed by a ghost, and people would go and worship the ghost in the banyan tree, expecting a favor for themselves when they went to a court, because the ghost had the ability to control the mind of the judge. So by this time, Bhakti Vinod Thakur had developed such a strong faith in Srimad Bhagavatam that he approached a local scholar. He said, you sit under the tree and read Srimad Bhagavatam every day. For 1 month, this scholar read Srimad Bhagavatam sitting under the banyan tree. And after 1 month, this tree just crashed and collapsed on the ground. And the village was, freed from the influence of the ghost. There is one more incident. I believe this is when his second or third son was born. Um, he was asked by, there was a person in a village um, who was pretending to be God. And this person had two companions. And he said that I am Mahavishnu and my two companions are Brahma and Shiva. And this person had mystic powers. He was so powerful that he would lean into fire and then come back to an erect position without getting burned. Using his mystic powers, he would produce flames from his head, and by a show of acrobats and things of this nature, he was trying to gather many followers. He was influencing a lot of people. And the British government, he actually published a statement that I am God and I am gonna, I'll make sure that I'll be able to make British leave from the state of Orissa single-handedly with no help. So the British government in that area got very upset and they approached Bhakti Vinod Thakur to bring some relief to this situation. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur, this is a pastime of his courage actually. He approached this person. And he said that you should come to Jagannath Puri and take blessings of the Lord in Jagannath. We have a deity of Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra Devi in Jagannath Puri. It's a town in Orissa. And Bhakti Vinod requested this person who was pretending to be God to come and take blessings. And this person, he mocked Lord Jagannath and he said, why should I come? I am God and he is just a hunk of wood. Why should I come there? Bhakti Vinod Thakur could not stand the blasphemy of the Lord at all. So he immediately had this person arrested. This person was put in jail. And because he had mystic powers, he actually threatened Bhakti Vinod. He said that you should, free me up, otherwise the consequences will be very severe. He used his mystic powers, and Bhakti Vinod Thakur's daughter, Kadambini, she became seriously ill and almost died. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur knew that this was the work of this person. And the proceedings were going on, and this person continued to the point where Bhakti Vinod Thakur himself came down with very high fever like Kadambini and got very sick. But he made a statement that I don't mind if we all die, but this bogus person should be exposed. So that this is this shows his courage and strength, even in the face of adversity. He continued, with the proceedings of exposing this bogus person, and he passed a statement that this person should be put in jail for 18 months and he should be moved to a more secure place. And this person was actually so dangerous that they were like 12 dozen policemen, like 72 policemen guarding one person. That's how powerful he was by the dint of his mystic potencies. Bhakti Vinod Thakur also ordered the jailer to cut this person's hair. For a lot of these mystic yogis, the strength of their mystic powers was in their long hair. The jailer cut the medical in charge of that jail. He cut this bogus person's long hair, and as soon as his hair was cut, he lost his power and he dropped on the ground. Because he was losing power, he became very weak. He was put into another jail, and 3 months later he consumed poison, he committed suicide and he died. So this, this at that, we find it very, normal to hear because we don't come across such incidents. But in that time, people pretending to be God or so-called, bogus personalities were becoming very commonplace. So it was very important to expose them. And as I mentioned earlier, despite personal hardships, Bhakti Vinod Thakur's doing that, it sent a message to all these bogus people that you cannot continue with your farce anymore, right? We will bring you to justice and we will expose you. So he, on Krishna.com, there is a schedule of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He took rest for about 4 hours in a day. And there's he woke up, he took a light meal, he wrote, and then he continued. He did his duties, his professional duties, and he continued writing. He wrote about 100 books, despite the fact that he was a grahastha and he had 10 children. So I think Vaisheshika Prabhu was saying in his lecture that after 5 you start losing count because it's like they'll create a ruckus at home and do whatever basically. He was making light of the matter that despite the responsibilities of a profession and despite responsibilities of a household, he was able to do so much. And of course, we follow instructions of all acharyas, we take inspiration from all of them. But I feel that as grahasthas, we can relate to this even more, right? When we are in a household with children, the cacophony going on, and not everybody can continue reading scriptures and doing your duties. But he's an example for all of us to follow in that sense. He wrote 100 books. There's another major contribution that he made. He was sitting on the roof of a building one day, and he observed that actually he, during the later years of his life, he decided that it's time for me to retire and go to Vrindavan. He was coming very close to making a decision that I'm going to retire from my job now and I'm going to go back to Vrindavan Dham. Vrindavan is the place where Lord Krishna appeared as a child, and it's a place of pilgrimage, and it's the place where all aspiring devotees of Krishna want to go and if possible leave our bodies there. So he was coming to that phase of life. That night he had a dream, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke to him, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him that there is one more thing I want you to do. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted him to help rediscover the birthplace, because all these places were lost. Remember how in Braj Leela, how in Vrindavan the Shyam Kund, Radha Kund were lost, and the 6 Goswamis had helped excavate those holy places. So similarly in Chaitanya Leela, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birthplace was lost to the material vision. Bhakti Vinod Thakur decided that before going to Vrindavan, heading to Braj, this was something that he had to do. And he had made a request for retiring, but he was such a proficient worker that the government rejected his request for retirement also. So he requested for a transfer. He took a post in Krishnanagar, in a town very close to where Mahaprabhu had appeared. He was sitting on a terrace one day. How do I explain terrace? We have sloping roofs here. In India, we don't have sloping roofs. I guess some buildings in Texas have flat roofs, right? So cement construction. He was sitting on the terrace one day. He was chanting in rounds, And he noticed that there was a tall tree which was remarkably effulgent. He was able to notice like a bright light effulgence on the top of a tall tree. So he picked up Chaitanya Bhagavat. He picked up there's a like the map system of that area, Navadvip map system. Like how we have that big map book here, which nobody uses these days. Kids are looking at me. What is she talking about? In the olden days, we used to have a big book of maps, right? Atlas, right? Yeah, Atlas. Yeah, I even forgot the name because we live in a GPS world these days, right? So if you wanted to go to some place, you have to look through the atlas and look at the map. And actually, when I started working in 2005, I had a traveling job. I had to go from one place to another, and there was no GPS that time. So this is how I traveled. We would mark, okay, 5 miles this, 10 miles this. So he picked up the map system. He very scrutinizingly studied that area, and he concluded that that tall tree was the birthplace of Nimai, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then the other scholars, other Vaishnava scholars in that area also confirmed that. And then the next God Purnima, he organized a grand festival at that location. So if we see, and Bhakti Vinod Thakur, once he was convinced about the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, when he stopped experimenting with the Christian theology and the Shankaracharya philosophy, that time he realized that he could not do it alone. He had an ardent desire for Lord Chaitanya's message to be spread around the world. And he knew that he could not do it alone. So he started offering very sincere prayers to the Lord that I want to spread your message far and wide, but I cannot do it. So you help me by sending a person who can assist me in this. And in his response, in response to his prayers, Bimal Prasad, his fourth or fifth son, was his son Bimal Prasad, his son appeared, and Bimal Prasad, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is referred to as Ray of Vishnu. He appeared, and at a very young age, Bimal Prasad, when he was 4 years old, he had the entire Bhagavad Gita, like all the verses memorized. At the age 7, he could give, eloquent purports on all the verses of Bhagavad Gita. He was a lifelong celibate, proponent of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the one who instructed our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, when he was very young, to preach this message in the Western world. So Srila Prabhupada actually said one time that Bhakti Vinod Thakur actually was the one who actually inaugurated the Hare Krishna movement, because he had that vision. He prayed for a ray of Vishnu. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur or Bimal Prasad appeared, and he gave instruction to Abhay Charan, that time Abhay Charan, who later became A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who traveled to the Western world and preached the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So three main, we cannot count the blessings of Acharyas. It's not an object, right? We cannot measure their mercy. But if we want to note, then three key contributions of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He wrote about 100 bona fide authorized scriptures. to spread the message of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. He wrote about 100 books. He helped excavate and rediscover the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he wrote many bhajans and poems following the Vedic scripture. And I know some of his bhajans like Nachire Amar Man, Vaisheshika Prabhu was saying that they are so popular that you can just walk around singing and everybody will join you in a dance. And those bhajans show his mood. And he's referred to as the seventh Goswami. Interestingly, Bhakti Vinod Thakur was a grahastha, but a Bhajananandi, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who was the spiritual master of Bhakti Siddhanta, he would come and listen to spiritual discourse from Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Bhakti Vinod Thakur is referred to as the seventh Goswami. We have a prayer by Srinivas Acharya, the Sad Goswami Ashtakam. Nana Shastra Vicharane Nipuno Saddharma Sanstapako Lokanam Hitakarano Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padarvinda Bhajana Nandena Mattaliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. So 6 Goswamis, they Nana Shastra, they scrutinizingly studied various scriptures. Why? Because they wanted to bring an eternal benefit to the society at large by telling them that surrendering to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna will bring you a solution from all problems. So similarly, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he scrutinizingly studied the scriptures, and that was his goal. He wanted to help the masses, the people, surrender to lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, because he knew that this is what will bring them eternal benefit. He wrote a small booklet. It was titled Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Life and Percepts. And that small booklet, after he wrote and published it, he sent it to different libraries around the world. It actually came to McGill University, the Royal Asian Society in London, and I heard in Vaisheshika Prabhu's lecture that that copy that was sent to McGill University was there a couple of years ago, and then a devotee found it and stole it. Where devotees are very interesting. I mean, in New Vrindavan, a family, they had a big camcorder. This is 2003. They had a camcorder, this, that, a lot of stuff. They left the bag there. And they came a day later and the bag was sitting right there with the camcorder and everything. And the pujari commented that I'm going to bring out Mahaprashadam and in 7 seconds it's going to be gone. So the devotees know what to look for and what to pick. It is in that, and Srila Prabhupada actually liked to make that comment that he appeared in the same year when Bhakti Vinod Thakur distributed that booklet to libraries around the world. And he used to make that wish. He made that prediction that the holy name of the Lord will be, sang in various parts of the world. And he used to say, when will that day come when fair-skinned devotees from around the world will come to Bengal and chant and dance with Bengali devotees. So, that was his desire, his vision, which Bhakti Siddhanta executed by instructing Abhay Charan or Srila Prabhupada. So, for not just for Grahasthas, but for everybody, there's so much for us to learn from Bhakti Vinod Thakur and from his bhajans and his songs as well. I see I have just, Yes, Nitya.
Oh, I didn't mean to jump the gun. Are you ready for questions?
I'm just going to very quickly touch upon Shri Gadadhar and Swarup Damodar Prabhu, and then we will take questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, as long as I'm first.
Okay, okay. So, Shri Gadadhar was a close associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna who came in the year 1500 AD, around that time. In his childhood, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was called Nimai, and he and Shri Gadadhar were in the same school. So I know we have some new guests today, but Nimai was a mischievous child. He was very energetic and he loved fun and frolic, right? There are so many amazing pastimes of Nimai going around the village and keeping everybody at their toes with his mischievous activities. Shri Gadadhar, on the other hand, was complete opposite of that. He was calm, very composed, very quiet. He liked to be, he liked to be in seclusion by himself. And he was fairly detached, even at a young age, as a child, from the world. But there was only one thing that he was attached to. He was attached to Nimai. And as they grew together in the school, Nimai would go and play with Shri Gadadhar. Nimai, being the mischievous Nimai he was, he would go and say, "Hey, Shri Gadadhar, you think you are a great Pandit?" Because we call him Gadadhar Pandit. Full name is Gadadhar Pandit. "Hey, Nimai would say, "Hey, Gadadhar, you think you are a great Pandit? Tell me, what are the symptoms of a liberated soul?" And Nimai, he would jokingly ask this question. And Shri Gadadhar would give an answer perfectly based on the Shastras, the scriptures, and with perfect logic and evidence. And Nimai jokingly would say, of course, we know jokingly, but Shri Gadadhar did not know that time. Gadadhar Pandit did not know. That's all wrong. And he would make fun of Shri Gadadhar, and then he would run away. And Gadadhar Pandit would, he would often wonder that Advaita Acharya looks at Nimai with so much faith and devotion. Even Ishwara Puri gives so much respect to Nimai. And he would wonder, is there something about Nimai? I mean, I know that Nimai is very clever and intelligent. He's a Sanskrit scholar because Nimai as a youth used to teach Sanskrit grammar. Is there something about Nimai that is not clearly visible that I don't know? That's not illustrated in how he behaves normally. He would wonder, right? So as Nimai grew older and that phase of him being the mischievous boy who would pull pranks and pull everybody's leg, that phase got over and he became more serious. One time he came crying and Gadadhar Pandit was very surprised to see the change in Nimai. Nimai was crying in separation of the Lord. And that's when, Shri Gadadhar was, convinced himself that this is none other than my Lord. He's Srimati Radharani, the daughter of Rishabhanu and Kirtida, is the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna in Braj Leela. And that same potency that appears at Srimati Radharani in Braj Leela appears as Sri Gadadhar in Chaitanya Leela. So the constant companion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. During the last 12 years of Mahaprabhu's earthly Leela, when his base was in Jagannath Puri, that time Gadadhar Pandit also lived with Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu instructed him to worship a deity of Kurmadev. He worshipped that deity, and after Mahaprabhu ended his earthly Leela and merged into that deity, that time Gadadhar, although he was only 47 or 48 years of age, he became, almost lifeless. He became very old in separation from his beloved friend and Lord. He used to worship a deity of the Tota Gopinath, um, and he had become so weak that he could not extend his arm to garland the deity. So to receive the service and the garland from Gadadhar, the deity actually sat down, and that is the only deity of Lord Krishna that is in a sitting pose. And I think 1 or 2 years later, Gadadhar Pandit also ended his earthly leela. He did not live long after Mahaprabhu left this planet. And just very briefly talk about Swarup Damodar, and then we'll conclude the class today. Swarup Damodar, his disappearance day is today. He was also a very close associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyas, at that time Swarup Damodar Prabhu, he presented many logics and arguments against Mahaprabhu taking sannyas. He was trying to convince Nimai that he should not take sannyas. And he said that whatever service you're doing, you want to do, you can do that in this state also. But Nimai convinced him that as a sannyasi, it will be easier for him to accomplish that mission for which he came. Um, when Nimai took sannyas and became Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at that time Purushottam, which was Swarup Damodar's name before he took sannyas, he also took sannyas. And he became a very close associate, almost like a personal secretary of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whenever somebody wrote a bhajan or a poem or a composition and they wanted Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to read, it would first come to Swarup Damodar. He would read it, and if there were any corrections or any feedback, he would suggest those, and only after being studied or reviewed by Swarup Damodar would it make to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And again, in his last years, when Mahaprabhu was in Puri, in those 12 years, many times he would go into that bhav of the ecstasy where he was in deep separation from Srimati Radharani, and he would lose consciousness. And Swarup Damodar and Ramanand Rai, another close associate of Lord Chaitanya, were actually Lalita Sakhi and Vishakha Sakhi from the Braj Leela. They were the only ones who were close to him and who would understand his mood that time. So, Swarup Damodar Prabhu's pastimes are also very glorious, coming close to the time. Otherwise, there are some very interesting anecdotes. When Mahaprabhu was getting ready to leave for South India, how everybody wanted to come with him, but he was telling everybody that you cannot come. Nityanand Prabhu, Sri Gadadhar, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Swarup Damodar, everybody wanted to come along with Gadadhar Pandit, everybody wanted to come along with Mahaprabhu. But Mahaprabhu had to tell them reasons, no, you cannot come. So we can pray to the Acharyas. They're extra merciful on their appearance and disappearance days. We can pray to them by reading their bhajans and songs and the poems that they composed. And we can ask for their blessings so that we can also understand the message in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and live by that message. Okay, Nityanand Prabhu, you've concluded the class now. You had a question?
The Namahata program
Mhm.
that,
He started Bhakti Vinod Thakur.
where we had people just preaching in their houses
Mhm.
and inviting people and spreading, God consciousness and practicing God consciousness in the houses. Now, did he start a mission through that, or was that more of a scheme that's been later taken up, by ISKCON now today, or was there an actual mission?
It was started by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. That was another very critical contribution. Thank you. I forgot to mention that during the class. He actually revolutionized preaching, and I think the Namahata have a very special place in our movement. I personally joined from a small center. When I joined ISKCON, the place from where I joined was not an established ISKCON center. So if you flip back to a book, you see all the centers listed: Houston, New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut. The place from where I joined, Albany, New York, it was not a registered temple. It was something like a Namahata center. So he actually revolutionized preaching by introducing the Namahata center. It was a very critical contribution. And so many people these days are joining. That's how we spread the Vriksha, right? Bhakti Vriksha programs. There's a tree, and then the branches and the fruits and the leaves spread far and wide. Anybody else has a question?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
You said that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was, he was sometimes called the seventh Goswami, right?
He's referred to as the seventh Goswami. Yeah.
Okay. I want to be called the eighth Goswami. What do I do, Mataji?
Okay. Are your parents here? Good. You put me on a spot now.
Yes, you have to do a lot of preaching.
Yeah. So what path you decide for. Goswami means, go means the senses. Swami means one who has conquered his senses. The 6 Goswamis were actually in the renounced order of life. They did not have home or families. They lived as renunciates. And again, I'm not going to go into details, but Mahaprabhu instructed each Goswami on a particular thing. So Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami were instructed to preach and spread the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Mahaprabhu instructed Raghunath Das Goswami to be a renunciate. So he did not eat or drink at all. Right? He ate. He did not even do madhukari. He would eat like just a little bit of rice, which was actually thrown in the backyard of the Jagannath Puri temple, which the cows would also reject because it was getting spoiled and rotting. And then he came to a stage where he would just drink like a palm full in a leaf, like a few drops of buttermilk. The reason Bhakti Vinod Thakur was being referred or is being referred as a 7th Goswami, I think there is a strong message behind it. He was a grahastha. He had a job. He worked as the deputy magistrate or the district magistrate. He had 10 children. He had a wife. He traveled very extensively preaching the message. Still, he is called a 7th Goswami. Now, if you contrast Bhakti Vinod Thakur with the other 6 Goswamis, so there you will see an apparent contradiction. Like he's a householder with a home. He actually built a kutir where he could retire, after his professional duties and the household duties were completed, which is very unlike the Goswamis. They lived under trees. So the point I'm trying to make here is that to be a Goswami, you don't necessarily need to leave everything, wear just a white kopin. Kopin means just a dhoti. There's no shirt either. Maybe like a bare minimum hanky or a gamcha. So Goswami means one who has conquered his senses. And conquering senses in Krishna consciousness is not, I'm not going to eat. I'm going to eat only prasadam. Conquering senses, tongue is a sense, right? So we don't say that I'm not going to talk at all. I'm going to do a Maun Vrat. Maun Vrat means I'm not going to speak at all. I'm just going to be quiet for 3 days. Good luck with food. Me, I can never do that, seriously. But I'm going to talk only about Krishna, and I'm going to use my tongue only for talking about Krishna, chanting his name or eating prasadam. So you can conquer your senses if you engage yourself in pleasing the senses of Krishna. Anybody who is engaging their body, mind, their limbs, their senses to please Krishna's senses is qualified to become a Goswami. This is actually the first verse of NOI, Vachavegam Mansavegam. What to talk of being a Goswami? The Nectar of Instruction explains that one who can control the demands of the mind, the actions of anger, and the demands of the tongue, belly, and the genitals is fit to become a spiritual master. So you can become a Goswami if you engage your senses in pleasing Krishna's senses, following the footsteps of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And again, whether as a householder or whether as in the renounced order, that's a path you will choose. There is absolutely no pressure for anything. I've seen so many devotees in the last 18-20 years who are academically accomplished, professionally accomplished, but preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya, preaching the teachings given by Srila Prabhupada. And I don't know who I was talking to the other day. There was one brahmachari in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's group who I think just lustily looked at a woman. Who was it, Sudhimitra Mataji? Chapal Gopal?
It's Chota Haridas.
Chota Haridas. And Mahaprabhu was very heavy on him. He immediately asked this person to leave. And this person, he, of course, felt very despondent, and ultimately he gave up his life by jumping into the Ganges. And when Mahaprabhu was told, he said that's a befitting punishment. And one time when he was on South India Yatra, in the house of Kurma Brahman, this Brahman grabbed the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he said that I don't want to be caught in the shackles of Grahastha life anymore. I want to come with you. Wherever you go, I will come with you. And Mahaprabhu instructed him that if you chant and if you preach the message of the Lord, I am never separated from you. So being a householder, staying in your home with your wife and children, you can associate with me by chanting the names, by chanting the holy name. So Goswami is one who can please the senses of Krishna. And you don't have to take any extreme path for that. Bhakti Vinod Thakur was not envious of others. He, the Sat Goswami Ashtakam prayers actually starts with that, the very first verse. They were loved by the 6 Goswamis were loved by the gentles and the ruffians. They were not envious of everybody. They were mild-mannered. And same with Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He never did anything to hurt anybody. Never spoke angrily to anybody. Of course, never tolerated blasphemy towards the Lord or the scriptures either. That is the right use of anger. So if you do that, then you are a Goswami. You can be a Goswami right now. I can see effulgence.
Thank you, Mataji, for the detailed
One comment, Mataji.
Yes.
Bhakti Vinod Thakur is Kamala Manjari in the spiritual
Shiva
world.
World, yeah.
So he's not an ordinary soul. He was born to preach the
Yeah.
movement. So yes, it's all
Yeah.
wonderful, all the accomplishments.
Yeah.
But he's a special soul,
So, yeah,
born for preaching purposes, and he's Kamala Manjari in the spiritual
yeah,
world.
from the Rajlina.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like having Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is a ray of Vishnu. They're all Manjaris, who have come places.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada himself, Prabhupada never revealed his constitution and position in the spiritual world. But in some of the writings and stuff, they know he's a very close associate of Krishna, probably one of the cowherd boys, because he talks about playing in Braja, when will I go back to Braja and play. So nobody knows for sure because Prabhupada never revealed it. But
Yeah.
Prabhupada is also a very special soul. So all
Yeah.
these Goswamis and everybody, I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, that's a very good aspiration. It's like at an early age you want to do that. Any other question?
That was a wonderful answer.
Thank you,
That
Prabhu.
was awesome.
Thank you.
I can't help but say it.
Thank you, Prabhu. I repeat like I can repeat like a parrot. I heard a lecture by Vaishishika Prabhu, I heard a lecture by my Guru Maharaj, and I think they just inspired me to speak when this young Goswami asked that question. Yes, yes.
What is the difference between the Paramhansa and the Goswami?
Say that again, Prabhu.
The difference between the Paramhansa and the Goswami.
I'm gonna defer to some senior devotees, but I can try, Prabhu. Goswami
Goswami, you have explained.
says, like, you know, one who has mastered the senses, and the easiest way to master the senses is to please Krishna's senses. Paramsa means one who has realized the truth, one who has realized the Paramatma.
Which one is superior, Goswami or- Which one is the, like on the higher stage, like the Paramhansa or the Goswami?
So I don't know, Prabhu, if there is a race and who is better, but I think if I can achieve either one of the states, I'll be happy. So we can ask somebody which one is better. Yes, Nitin.
All I know is, I mean, is that, what I've always heard is that Hansa, Hansa means swan, and Karma means, great. So swan, the swan is, in the example is that a swan can, if you put milk in the water, the swan can just suck out the milk out of the dirty water.
Mhm.
And so the idea is that a Paramahamsa is somebody that, no matter if a person has tons of bad qualities, it will zero in on the good qualities and expand it. So sometimes a great soul, a great pure devotee is called Paramahamsa, Parvikacharya, Srila Prabhupada is Goswami. He's also Paramahamsa. I don't know the exact honorific title, but that's what Paramahamsa means. A person can be Paramahamsa Goswami, Parvikacharya means traveling acharya.
Yeah.
So there's so many different names, I think they can all apply to the same one, but Paramahamsa means that specifically, that they see the good and they expand on it and they avoid the bad.
Like the honeybee
Yeah.
goes to the nectar.
Yeah, not the fly. The fly, the fly will see all kinds of healthy
Yeah,
things and go right to the source water.
yeah,
An envious person is like that.
yeah.
So we want to be like the swans. It's not
Yeah.
not the flies.
Yeah, thank you, that's a really good answer. So Paramahansa means one who goes for the nectar. If there are, I think it's 5 p.m. If there are any other questions or comments, we can discuss after the program is over. We shouldn't keep the DJs waiting. Shila Prabhupada ki Jai. Shila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. Gadadhar Pandit and Swarup Damodar Prabhu ki Jai. God Premanande.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Jai Gaur Nitai Ji ki Jai Jagannath Baldev Subramanya ki Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Krishna बहु कोटि चंद जीने जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिव
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Acharya Astatar Satashishi Mad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charana Brinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jagadguru Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON DBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nityalila Pradishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Acharya Astatar Satashishi Mad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Kota Vaishnavin Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Praise Ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Brajabhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Ki Jai Purushottam Kshetra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Chandanamai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Srimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Harihat Vinanda Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Shri Ruchi Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Thakur Swami Prabhu Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premananda All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. very much, everybody, for coming for the Sunday Feast program this evening. We have one feast sponsoring family today. Jairam Prabhu and family are sponsoring for Krishna Lalsa's birthday, which is tomorrow. Hari Bol. So we have new guests today, Nicholas and Ram. In our culture, we welcome our new guests, or we express our jubilation by raising our hands in the air and chanting Hari Bol. Hari means the name of the Lord and Bol means to speak. So we are going to offer you a traditional welcome in our style by chanting Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Thank you very much for coming. We have a gift for you. Is there anybody else who's visiting an ISKCON temple for the first time? Thank you very much for coming. I don't know your name, but we'll chant a Hari Bol for this family as well. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! So, for our new guests or our first time guests, we have a special book gift. It's a book by our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. Radhasindhu Prabhu, can you pass the books, please? And one book per family. So Mataji, one book for your family, basically. Radhasindhu Prabhu, can you give him a book as well? Anybody else visiting in this center for the first time? Okay. Radhasindhu Prabhu, can you, so before you leave, once you get your prasadam box or maybe before that, please see Radhasindhu Prabhu. Prabhu, raise your hand in the green kurta, sea green kurta. He looks like a Loki Dudhi today. Please share your contact information with him, primarily your email ID, so that we can add you to our temple distribution list, and we can keep you informed of our special programs that way. And we don't share email IDs outside of the temple group. Talking about special programs and events, Sunday, July 18th, we will be celebrating Snan Yatra. That's Snan Yatra. Snan means to take a bath, and Yatra means like a special festival or a celebration. Snan Yatra is the ceremonial bathing of Lord Jagannath, Lord Baldev, and Subhadra Devi. On Snan Yatra day, the lordships are given a bath, after which they catch a cold, and for 2 weeks they retire to a special room where they rest. They take special medicines, a special diet, and then 2 weeks later they come out. So basically they are off from darshan while they are while they have the cold. And I don't know if they'll be wearing a mask or not. We'll have to ask the pujari. But 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after the Snan Yatra, they will come out, and we will have another grand celebration where they will go out on a parade in a special chariot, and that is a Rath Yatra celebration on July 31st. So July 18th is Snan Yatra, ceremonial bathing of the Lord. That's a Sunday. And July 31st is Rath Yatra, when we will have a parade or a special procession with the lordships on the chariot, and that is on a Saturday. In all probability, there will be no program on August 1st. The lordships need a rest, and the devotees also need a rest. And continuing with our special programs, this
there in Glastonbury Riverside Park.
Oh yes, thank you, Mataji. So we have a new location this year. The event is in the riverfront park in Glastonbury. It's literally like 2 blocks from here. I would say half a mile. Okay, this way. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Totally lost my sense of direction. So that way, it is not in Bushnell Park. It is at the riverfront park in Glastonbury.
Hari Bol!
Hari Bol! And continuing with our special programs, Tuesday, July 13th, we have a very special guest and speaker at the temple, His Holiness
Jai Advaita Maharaj. Hari Bol. The program starts at 6:30 right here at the temple. We have both in person and online, program. So
evening aarti on that day?
I don't know, Prabhu, we'll have to ask. So whoever can, please come and attend the program by His Holiness Jai Advaita Maharaj. Gita Nagari milk is here, so before you leave, please collect your milk bottles. And we can now have the chanting for these sponsors.
Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pritaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanande
Namah
Om Vishnu Padaya
Krishna
Prestaya Bhutale
Srimate
Srila Prabhupada ki Krishna Lalsa ki. Now I have the mic, so we'll do it one more time. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Third mic. Srila Prabhupada ki. Krishna Lalsa ki. So, the rock team, ready?
Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna, dear Krishna Rasa. Hare Krishna to you. May you never take birthday. May you never take birthday.
Hari Bol. We have a plate of Mahaprasadam for Krishna Lalsa. Our tea sponsors get a plate of Mahaprasadam. I think it has about 11 or 12 kinds of sweets and savories. Maybe even more. Mahaprasadam flowers and some Mahaprasadam nuts and tulsi leaves. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Dev Prabhu, this is a good day for a guitar. Thank you very much again, everybody. Before you leave, please collect your Mahaprasadam to-go boxes and collect your Gita Nagari milk bottles outside in the foyer area. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
We are closing the Zoom also, Mataji. Just announced we are closing the Zoom call also.
Oh, the program has ended and the Zoom call will be over. Sorry, I forgot that I have to mention that. Hare Krishna.
Because right now
कृष्णा के जैसे करली बाल है इसके।